So one of the unique things, I think, for our business is that the business model we're operating in what we're calling robotic as a service.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the Digital Supply Chain Podcast, the #1 podcast focusing on the digitization of supply chain. And I'm your host, Global Vice President at SAP, Tom Raftery. Hi everyone, welcome to the Digital Supply Chain Podcast, the first SPAC since my vacation, so I'm full of energy. With me on the show today, I have my special guest, Lior. Lior, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Lior Elazary. I'm the CEO of inVia Robotics, and I really appreciate being on the show, Tom.
Thanks, Lior. Thanks for coming on. And so for people who are unaware, Lior, what is inVia Robotics?
Sure. So inVia Robotics provides robotic solutions to the warehouse industry. And in particular, we've been helping e-com type warehouses be able to fulfill the orders. So all the orders that you order online now, somebody needs to be able to do that. And our robots are helping people to do that as efficiently as possible.
Okay, superb. Now, we're in late August, September 2020, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. I assume, online ordering has gone through the roof. I know for myself, the vast majority of my orders nearly always were online, for years anyway, because I'm one of those kind of people. But I see neighbors and things like that now getting deliveries pulling up at their door that never happened before. Is this impacting your business?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a huge uptick, right, in demand. And, unfortunately, under these circumstances, a lot of retail stores had to, basically close doors or have very limited people be able to go in or have various restrictions, if they go in that they have to obey by. And that made it very difficult, I think, for consumers to go out and buy products the way they're used to. Even though e-com was sort of, booming and was increasing in its rate, this pandemic has sort of, I think, increased it by 10 years, jumped it into the future. And we have several customers who had larger volumes in the last few months than they had over peak of last year. So usually, in the warehouse industry and in e-com, a lot of people order during Christmas, November, and there's huge peaks, talk about millions of items going through.
Sure.
And this time, because of the pandemic, we actually had our customers have larger volumes in the last few months that usually is fairly dead than that peak. And that's, again, it's a very challenging place for them to be in because now they have to fulfill this. And on top of this, what has happened with the COVID-19 is it just limited the number of people that you even have access to work in the warehouse. So our customers are, really thanked us for being able to supply that demand with their existing infrastructure, with their existing people, and then basically adding robots and increasing the robot side in order to handle that demand.
Let's take a step back for a second because we never actually addressed this. First of all, as I said, as we were prepping for this call, I know nothing about warehousing. I've never been in a warehouse, never worked in a warehouse. I know very little about them. When I hear the word warehouse, I think of that Raiders of the Lost Ark closing sequence where you had this guy pushing this crate through this enormous warehouse and to lose the item purposely in there. So what is it that you guys do to help your customers? What problems are you solving for them?
So in particular, the main problem we're solving is a lot of our customers have random access to their items that need to happen. I'll paint a picture for you. So imagine several football fields large with shelves just, spanning the whole place as far as the eye can see, miles and miles of shelves. And lots of items inside these shelves. Now, normally when somebody orders a bunch of items, the person will have to basically be a personal shopper, right? That's how they used to do it. In the old days, they would take that person would walk through those aisles, find the items that you requested and deliver them. Now, in a small store, like, person used to go into, you might have about 5,000, 10,000 different SKUs. And that's still challenging. You have to look through them and find them. But when you're dealing with, 50,000, 100,000, you have potential to have like a million SKUs, it makes it a lot more difficult. In fact, the distances that you have to travel are huge. And the big problem here is that the warehouse itself doesn't get access for all per day, doesn't necessarily get access for all million SKUs, meaning people are not ordering every one of those SKUs. They're actually ordering a very small subset of these SKUs.
Right.
And what's happening is that every day, different people are ordering different items, which makes it really, really complex. I mean, if the same people ordered the same, 1,000 items, then they'll just put those 1,000 items near their pack out and then have to pack it out. But what makes this problem extremely, extremely difficult is that every day consumers are just ordering random stuff, and it's extremely difficult to even predict what they're going to order. There's some algorithms that we use to try to predict, but most of the time it's very difficult. So then you have these people who have to walk around the whole warehouse every single day to collect these items, basically be personal shoppers for them, and deliver them out and get them out, to the customer who demanded that. Now, one of the issues
getting their
that
steps
they have,
up on their fitness trackers, right?
Exactly. Oh, definitely. And one of the main challenges that they have with the people is that first, most people who order online don't want to pay for it. Like, you don't want to pay for shipping. You don't want to pay for handling. I remember back in the old days, I used to order something. It was $40 shipping and handling. I was always wondering, what is that handling fee? Why is it $40? Why are they charging so much? But it is because it takes them a lot of people to go through. Now, with the amount of volume that people have ordered online and the amount of SKUs are the individual units that people have to keep, the different units that people have to keep in the warehouse. This has been extremely, extremely challenging. And on top of it, the consumers don't even want to pay for it. So that's, been even more challenging. So what they have is a huge challenge to labor, right? So the labor points that they need, I mean, some of them need 1,000 people to walk around during peak and be able to collect all these items for all these people and move that over. And that is an extremely difficult task, not just the amount of walking that they have to do, but also from the management point of view to gather 1,000 people together. And now with COVID, that piece even is just almost non-existent. And then, some of the potential customers we're talking to are really, really scared of the next peak, because coming December, coming November, Cyber Monday, Black Friday, people are not going to be able to go to the stores. But at the same time, they cannot find the labor to work inside the warehouse. So the way we help them with it is we basically make the labor a lot more efficient. So instead of the labor walking, or the people having to walk inside the warehouse, what we do is we have the people just stand in one place and the robots are bringing them the materials. So that makes a person a lot more efficient and allows our customer to really fulfill the orders with the same amount of people that they have in the warehouse without having to, figure out, okay, how I'm going to do this. Or usually what happens is they're late on these orders. That's why during Christmas, sometimes you don't get, that item in time because just the warehouse was not able to fulfill it. So our robots are basically doing the walking for the people, bringing it to the people. And then the people are able to do now more value-added services like QCing the item, to have more time. And in fact, some of the problems that they have is that people by themselves don't really like the same task over and over again. So unfortunately, also in the warehouse, they have a huge turn for where the people just don't, like, after a while, after 6 months at the most, they just leave. They don't even, come back. Because it's just, it's not just that you have to walk so much, it's that you're walking and doing the same task over and over and over again. And it's very difficult for people to do. And this is a job that is great for robots. Robots actually love doing the same task over and over again. That's not a problem for them. And then really what happens is on the people side, we're making more problem solvers. They're doing more of the higher level tasks. So that actually gets them a little bit more motivated. They love doing the tasks. We call them robot wranglers. So they're actually dealing with the robots as well, the robots' problems, right? And dealing with that. And now instead of, them being able to fulfill, maybe like, 100, 200 orders an hour, they're able to fulfill 1,000 orders an hour. All right. So the same person, but he's just doing a different task as opposed to walking around.
Okay. What kind of tasks would they be doing typically? Because again, like I said, never worked in a warehouse.
Yeah. So just imagine, instead of you walking through the warehouse and collecting the items, you're now standing still and the items are coming to you. Mm-hmm. So one of the things you could do more is pack up, right? So now you can actually pack the items as they're coming to you, but you have time to pay more attention to the item, make sure it's packed well, make sure you inspect it. So you're QCing it, you're looking at it and seeing, okay, is that item damaged? If it's damaged, then, I'm going to just get a new one. Now, because the robots are basically going to bring you the new item, you don't care as much. Where usually when people are walking around, if you see an item damaged, sometimes they'll just grab it because you already made that distance. You walk there, you want to get that. So it really creates a much better environment for the people to be in charge of the higher level, like I said, the problem solving. And if there's, an issue here or there, they're able to fix that in real time. And the robots are sort of the servants who are going out there and performing the tasks on behalf of the people.
Okay. And if I'm a warehouse manager and I want to implement a solution like this, what do I need to do? Because I'm sure there's a lot of work to set this up. I assume your robots are picking items by some kind of QR code or something like that on boxes. And the boxes are, I've got a 3D address somewhere in the warehouse, I assume. So there's probably a huge amount of setup involved. And then, I'm assuming. So you correct me or tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah. So actually, one of the things that we are as a company doing is reducing that setup time. So in the past, these kind of systems existed. They were called shuttle systems or ASRS systems. The issue with them is that the setup was enormous. You had to basically conform the warehouse to the robots. The robots were really simple. They're basically a cart with wheels, and you would have to build railroad tracks all over your warehouse in order for the robot to be able to traverse that. And you have to have specialized shelvings for the robots to interact with, and specialized totes and containers and items for the robots to interact with. And that used to cost millions of dollars. In fact, we have potential customers have spent over $150 million on some facilities.
Wow.
And they said it was a fun project, but just did not pay out. And what it also does is it really, gets that out of reach for most of the small to mid-sized businesses. They're just not able to afford something like that.
Sure.
What we do, and this is why, we're actually creating a much more sophisticated robot, is that our robot is able to adapt to the warehouse. So we're using the same infrastructure, the same warehouse shelving, the same totes, whether they're corrugated or plastic, it doesn't matter on our end. And what the typical setup really involves is for the warehouse manager to apply labels like they do now in the tote to identify them. And we make the label a QR code, which is basically what the robot sees. And then our fleet is able to just go out and map the warehouse in parallel autonomously, figure out where everything is, and the system is set up. And in fact, we've set up the system over a weekend and went live very quickly right afterwards. So I think this is really what's happening now with robotics and AI. It's not so much that, we're doing something completely different than what they had before. It's that now we're able to do it in a much more cost-effective way. In fact, if you think about it with the self-driving cars, we're working on the same way. We could build railroad tracks everywhere in the city, put everything. Now, that's going to be enormous, but that will make a car that will be able to drive pretty much autonomously. We have trains running pretty much autonomously most of the time. But instead, what we're doing is we're building cars that are able to adapt to the streets, to the different instances, and work there. So you don't have to modify the streets. You're modifying the car to make the car smarter. And we're applying that same technology actually to the robotics in the warehouse, where the robots now are adapting to the warehouse to walk around and to basically do that task without a huge infrastructure change. So to your point, like in the past, it used to be a huge amount of burden and setup time that you have to do it. And now you can pretty much set it up in no time. And that works great for us.
Interesting. I've got what may be a very naive question. Again, I'm not having worked in a warehouse.
Sure.
Warehouses obviously take delivery of goods as well as pushing goods out. Are the robots involved in stocking shelves as well, or is that something that's left for humans, or how does that all work?
Yeah, so actually our robots are able to help in various environments. So both in restocking, replenishment, as well as the picking also cycle counting, so counting the inventory. If you imagine a warehouse as a block box, you have a bunch of goods going into the warehouse. They get shuffled and reorganized in a particular way, and then they leave in small packages, grouped together, right? Really, that's what the warehouse operation does. Now, that is actually a really, really difficult problem. It's in the computer science world, we study these kind of problems, and it's an NP-complete problem. It's very difficult to really figure out where exactly should you have the items. You have various resources constraints. For example, you can keep the items in their original packaging, in the pallet that they came in, and pick from there. But then you're picking your time, it's going to be extremely, extremely slow. So instead, what you could do is you could break it down and put it into smaller, get it ready for people to pick. It's called a forward pick area, which they're going to be a lot faster, but then you lose density. And the question all the time is, how do you deal with which one should be your reserve area, which one should be in your forward pick area? How do you manage that? And sometimes you have to pack out, and then you have to fix the orders. So they put it in a hospital process. So there's many different processes that happen inside the warehouse to try to get that optimization, to try to get those orders right out the door as quickly as possible in there. So our robots are actually able to handle all the item movements inside the warehouse. So we can efficiently decide, okay, we're going to take these items based on predictions, based on some knowledge that we have, that we're going to be able to know that the next day they're going to be able to pick those and move those items closer to a particular area. We call it sort of defragging, like we used to do in the hard drive to access the files faster.
Remember that.
We do that. Yeah, exactly. We do that in real time. And then we're able to fulfill those orders as quickly as possible. And in fact, the thing that we're able to do a little bit more efficiently is the fact that the robots are operating in real time. If there's a demand for a particular item, in real time, we can move it closer. Where in the past, the person might walk, several miles to get to that item. And if that item was hit like 100 times a day, they will just go 100 times to that item as opposed to taking it and bringing it a little bit closer. So here, the robots, once they do that, they actually leave the item to be closer to be more efficient. So we help them, so as the items come into the warehouse, we help them break it down, take those items, put them back onto the shelves. Now, this also makes a huge difference for them because of mistakes. So in the past, they had people do that. And people often make mistakes. They might put the box in the wrong area, put the thing. Now, imagine 3 football fields large of full of totes, and then, like 400,000 totes, and then you put one tote in the wrong place. Trying to find that tote is almost impossible. It is very, very difficult. And a lot of times, the people will try to go and pick from that item, and it would be gone. They won't be there, and it will be short. The order, they call it a short order because now that doesn't contain that item. Now with the robots doing the task, the robots don't make a mistake. They always put the item right where it's supposed to be, and they're able to retrieve it right where it's from. And that makes a huge difference in the operation because it gets your whole process running a lot smoother as opposed to running around trying to fix mistakes. We've seen some customers have as high as 30% of the items that were sort of quote unquote lost inside the warehouse that, they weren't able to find them. So it's a big chunk.
I was thinking, knowing we were going to be doing this podcast, I was thinking about warehousing this morning and while I was on my walk, and I was thinking, everything I was wearing, everything that's around me in this office, everything that I've eaten so far in the last couple of weeks, they've all passed through warehouses, every single one of them.
Yep.
And, I was wondering, is there any particular industry that you or your company is specializing in, or is it simply as broad as, like I said, everything that I'm wearing, everything that I'm touching, everything that I've eaten and drunk, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
So we've been specializing in the e-commerce type of sector, and the reason that we're specializing in that particular field is that is probably the most challenging task to do. So in the past, things, as you're right, always been you always deliver stuff to warehouses. So even in the old days, right, where you went to the store, the items still had to go to the store. So what would happen is the warehouse wouldn't have to select which items to pick. They always picked sort of the same items, brought them over to the store. And that's why your store usually always had the same items. It was very rare for them to have a different item, or it took them a while to get a different item. So now what's happening is you're sort of getting those items directly from the warehouse, and you just want one shirt. Now they have a pallet full of 1,000 or 2,000 or even 100,000 shirts all packed together, and they have tons of them all over the place. And now you just want that one shirt, and that makes it extremely difficult for them. You're basically bypassing the store and going directly to the warehouse to get that item. So this is the task that we are, mainly helping with. Now we have some other customers who have some other needs for, for example, they do some samples for tiles or for other, materials and color swatches, stuff like that, where you also have to keep large number of SKUs, large number of items in your warehouse. So that's what we're mainly concentrated on. And that really, like I said, we've been experiencing a huge growth there even before the pandemic, and now it's just even more so. So it is, you're right, like almost all the items are coming from a warehouse. And I think a lot of people don't realize what does it take, to be inside a warehouse. And if you look at some of the way the old warehouses are being run for e-com, it's almost in complete chaos. People are just running around trying to figure out what to do. You have large order volumes, not enough support, not enough people, and the people are just trying to do their best, to fill the orders. And then you have consumers who don't see that, right? When you click add to cart, you don't see the effort required to get it out the door. And you're always like, okay, why did I get the wrong item? Why didn't I get the item in time? Mm-hmm. And it is a very, very chaotic place in there. And we're really helping them basically smooth all that out and make it run more like an efficient engine, like it should be.
Super. Lior, we are approaching or just gone over the 20-minute mark on the podcast, and I like to keep it to around that. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you think it's important that people be aware of?
Sure. So one of the unique things, I think, for our business is that the business model we're operating in what we're calling robotic as a service. And the difference here is it's not a lease, and it's not, we're not selling the robots. What we're doing is we're really aligning with our customers' needs and wants and incentives in order to align both of our companies to make sure we're operating on the right place. So what it comes down to is what we're really providing our customers is the productivity of the robots. And they're paying on that productivity as opposed to the robot. In the past, with automation, you had to, for example, buy a robot or buy, a fleet of robots. Now you became part of the robot business. You have to know how to optimize them. You have to know how to utilize them. If they're not running correctly, you have to know how to fix them. And that put that burden on our customers. And our customers are e-com type of customers. They're not roboticists. They don't know how to do that efficiently. And if you bought the robots, you're sort of stuck now with these robots and having to figure out what to do with them. Sure. What we do instead is we're actually pricing it on the productivity of these robots. And that really aligns the incentives, because if the robot is not productive, that's on us. That's on our dime, and we have to fix it. We have to work for it. And what we have is we have a robotic operations center. It's a team of people that used to be in one place. Now they're all remote, working all from home, but they're monitoring the robots, everything in real time. If anything happens, they're able to fix the robots in real time for our customers. So our customers don't have to deal with how do I fix, how do I maintain, how do I deal with this system and optimize it. And we're constantly optimizing it for our customers. And it really puts a huge burden on us, because if they're not utilizing the robots, if they're not using the robots, it does reflect on our business. And then it makes it a really good incentive where our customers, really what they care about is how many orders went out the door. And we make sure that they have a system that will provide them that many orders to go out the door. On top of this, what it does is it also allows you to grow your business and add to the automation as you grow. So in the past, you had to buy the whole system. You have to buy everything. And you would have to project almost 10 years into the future, because when you build it now, you're building it actually for 10 years from now. This was really difficult. And in fact, now with the pandemic, it's even worse, because it's really difficult to predict what's even going to happen next year. So what we're able to do is to provide the right throughput, the right number of orders per hour system that you need today, not tomorrow. And as you grow your business tomorrow, we're able to add robots and do that. And in fact, our customers experienced that same thing during COVID. They were running with one particular system, And like I said, we had some customers that saw a huge increase in volume and were able to provide them. In fact, one customer tripled their throughput with our robotic system, and were able to provide them that additional throughput very easily, and they didn't have to figure that out a year ago that they were going to need it, and they were able to increase that very quickly. So I think that's another piece that, again, the robotic as a service does, because what you're doing is you're paying for the need that you have today, not necessarily trying to predict what's going to be my need tomorrow.
And it's an OpEx rather than a CapEx.
Exactly. Yeah.
Superb. Lior, if people want to know more about yourself or about inVia Robotics, where would you have me direct them?
Sure. So you can go to www.inviarobotics.com. That's INVIA robotics.com. And we can find all the information there, and as well as contact us, and we'll be happy to chat with you.
I'll put that link in the description of the podcast as well, so people can see it and click on it if they want to. Lior, that has been great. Thanks a million for coming on the show today.
No problem. Thank you very much, Tom. Really, really appreciate being on the show and appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've come to the end of the show. Thanks everyone for listening. If you'd like to know more about digital supply chains, head on over to sap.com/digital supply chain, or simply drop me an email to tom.raftery@sap.com. If you like the show, please don't forget to subscribe to it in your podcast application of choice to get new episodes as soon as they're published. Also, please don't forget to rate and review the podcast. It really does help new people to find the show. Thanks. Catch you all next time.